Did you see the preview screen again?
No, it should be. It says it's live streaming now. Yes. Oh wait, yeah, it
Yep,
says live streaming, which is a
we're live. We're live.
we're live. Great. This reminds me, for those of you who are tuning in, welcome. This reminds me of when I did a radio show for about a week, and the person I was interviewing went dead, and I just stayed completely silent. And my producer was like, "You got to talk," and I'm like, "I got to talk." I'm like telling this to everybody, and this is exactly what this is like. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast live. We're doing a special live event with the great Jane Leavy, who is here to join us to talk about her book, Make Me Commissioner, which is fantastic, and we are going to absolutely make her commissioner. Jane, first of all, welcome.
You don't know how long I've been wanting to do this. Or maybe you do.
I don't know why anybody would want to do this, but it's so great to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk a lot about the book. If people have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But this is going to go on the podcast stream, so you can be part of the podcast. This is what all of you dream about, I'm sure. So Jane,
Joe.
you wrote a book called Make Me Commissioner, and I read it, loved it, and thought to myself, yeah, no, we should make Jane commissioner. Like this isn't like a gimmick. Like, you have ideas, you have real thoughts about what to do here. So tell us very quickly, because we have a lot to get to. How did this come up? How did this happen?
Well, first of all, Commissioner Manfred, who I refer to now as my predecessor,
Right.
Announced that he would give up his post at the end of his term in 2029.
Yes.
And I said, why not me?
Right.
I mean, why not me? How many times do we have to talk about thinking outside the box before somebody says, let me out of the box? I mean, no, I'm not a lawyer. I think that's probably in my favor.
Yeah.
Yes, I've spent my adult life doing this. I think I have some common sense, but better than common sense, I have the sense that baseball needs me.
That's all that matters. That's really what. But in somewhat of a serious way to say this, there are two things that you have that Rob Manfred does not have. There are more, but there are two things that come to mind. The first thing is, and this is become a cliche, but I think there's a reality. Nobody doubts how much you love baseball. Like, nobody doubts that. And with Rob Manfred, there are doubts. They're just doubts. But the second thing is, and I think this gets to the heart of you writing this book, right at the very beginning of this book, at the very beginning, and you could sense that this is how the book comes about. You're in Cooperstown at a table with Sandy Koufax, who, of course, you wrote the legendary book about, and Joe Torre, two of the most important baseball players of the last 75 years, not to mention two of the greatest manager, players, both. And you found that you were the one baseball fan at the table. I mean, that is really, really wild.
It knocked me over. I'm the person that sits at a dinner party, even ones I'm hosting, with my phone, watching the game under the tablecloth. And the fact that these guys were so distanced, so disaffected, was really overwhelming. But I think it's also indicative of how people had come to feel about the game.
Yeah.
There's a kind of estrangement that is the biggest thing that baseball needs to repair, in my view. And there are big ways to go about it, and there are also small things that could be done that would be, not just significant, but symbolic of making an effort to say, we want you. We're not kidding when we say we want you. We know how expensive the game is. We know that beers cost, $18, that if you can't afford to bring a family of 4 maybe want more than once a year,
Right.
right? And so we're going to do something about it because we recognize that we've grown the game, we've expanded, we're expanding more on a global stage, but now we really need to grow the game in our ballparks.
Yeah.
And they also need to have a little bit less hubris about it. I mean, I don't think the Savannah Bananas are their favorite topic of conversation. And I'm not in favor of having center fielders who practice backflips in order
Right.
to catch a ball that way. I don't want to see the baseball bananified.
Right.
But Jesse Cole, who created the Bananas, which is now a behemoth, albeit they don't have to fill ballparks every day for
No.
um, understood and saw the problem that baseball couldn't see itself. They had lost the fans.
Yeah.
And so, his emblem became fans first, entertainment always. Now, some of the entertainment involves fat men jiggling their fat and running around the bases.
Right. Or somebody breaking into a Broadway song in the middle of the game. Right.
Right. I don't want to see, people tap dancing in cleats.
Right.
But his sense of what people wanted from baseball was dead on right.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is not something that makes Major League Baseball happy that there is now a permanent exhibit of the Bananas in Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the process of reporting this book, close to the end of it, and I had been talking frequently with Morgan Sword, who I think is a really thoughtful, smart guy.
Terrific guy.
Disagree with, some things he's shepherded through, cutting back the minor leagues, starting with that. But he asked me what, I'm sorry, and I must introduce him, Executive Vice President of Major League Baseball, in charge of basically everything and every decision pertaining to what goes on in the field.
On the field, exactly.
Baseball operations is what it's called. They have that title everywhere now.
Yes,
baseball.
they do.
Nobody knows what it means. But anyway, and he said, "What did you learn?" And I said, "I learned that people want to love baseball.
Yeah.
But they want baseball to love them back. And that is the thing that baseball has to take a deep breath and say, okay, we really got to do something." So my first goal as commissioner will be to let all 10-year-old kids accompanied by an adult in free.
Yeah. I love that.
You know how many swaths of upper decks go empty at every ball game?
Yep.
Baseball, unlike football and basketball, has a huge inventory of games and seats at those games. So it's not a good look, to have all those seats empty. So, I'm not saying give them the $300 seat behind home plate, in the leather chairs. I'm saying, $12 ticket, whatever it is. And I actually had my friend Michael Halpert, who I assume you know,
Yes.
He's a professor of economics at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, and he's a baseball Cubs. He must be really depressed today, but I'm going to talk to him later. I'll find out.
Yes.
A Cubbies guy, and I said to him, "Could you run some numbers for me? What would it cost a team to do this?" So using the prices on the Cubs 2023 menu, and I'm sure we can update it for 2025. If grandpa, grandma, aunt, uncle, whoever brought a kid to the ballpark and bought that kid a kid-sized hot dog and a small soda and maybe Cracker Jacks or cotton candy and even a youth-size cap, it would have cost the Cubs $4 million in 2023. Now,
Wow.
I'm not saying that that's insignificant money to people out there, right? It's not insignificant to me, but to the 30 owners of Major League Baseball franchises, even the ones that cry poor house the loudest, it's chump change.
Chump change. It's a middle reliever.
it's a, yeah, maybe even, you know, and of course that was the same year, as Mike pointed out, that the Cubs paid Jason Hayward $21 million
Exactly.
to play for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So can you imagine the press conference where Manfred or I got up and said, we're serious. We want you. We want you back. We want kids back. We know it's been an issue. Just try being, straightforward.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is what we're going to do. It would be, well, there's not very many page ones anymore, but whatever remaining page ones there are, it would be above the fold, as they say in newspapers.
Yes.
And that's the kind of thing that I think they really need to do.
Well, I mean, we're going to start talking about some of your ideas very specifically, but since you brought up the bananas, I think that you really are getting at something in this way. The bananas have captured something that is, look, I have two daughters. They grew up on baseball because of me. They like it fine. They've never asked me to take them to a baseball game, but they have asked me to take them to a bananas game. Something about that generation and TikTok and everything else that they've got going. And I fear that baseball isn't learning the right lessons from the bananas. The bananas are not successful. I mean, they are successful because you never know what you're going to see. It's like the Globetrotters. It's crazy. Or you're going to see a guy flip. You're going to see a guy sing. You're going to whatever. All of that is wild. You're going to see somebody catch a ball in the stands and it's an out, and like all of those sorts of things. But what it really is exactly what you're saying. It's saying to the fans, this is your game. We're here not to win. We're not here to like squeeze out a 3-2 victory over the Brewers. We're here for you. We're here to entertain you. And there's a middle ground, obviously. You don't want it to be all entertainment, but you want some. And I mean, as you went around and sort of talked to people, did you get the sense that there are people in the game who understand that divide with the fans?
Yes, absolutely. And it's as if, in the zeal for numerical efficiencies, and every decision was made based upon numerical suppositions that you can predict what's going to happen because it's happened the same way 9 times out of 10.
Right.
I would argue that nothing happens in baseball exactly the same, anytime.
Yeah.
Yes, somebody will strike out. Somebody else will strike out, but they're not going to do it exactly the same way. And so they optimized every decision, and they monetized every decision at the same time. And it left people feeling like, where am I? They also did not, they're now starting to do this. And I give them props for the things that they've done. I really do. But here's the best story I can tell about this. The bananas, it turns out, are not just family friendly with the fat jiggling guys, the, banana dads, whatever.
Right.
It's not my idea of entertainment. Okay. But the foils, the bananas original foils, they're now 4 teams and they're trying to go for 6, are the party animals. And those are the guys in pink.
Yes.
So I'm in West Palm Beach and at the complex, because everybody has to have a complex now.
Of course.
That the Astros and the Nats share. And this guy in pink climbs into the stands in the middle of the game and sits down next to this little boy who's gorgeous, gorgeous little guy. And he hands the kid a pen and he says, "Will you sign my jersey?" Everything you need to know about the difference between Major League Baseball and the bananas is in that interaction and in that reversal of roles.
Yeah.
It is a way of saying, you're important to me. And because everybody knows that autographs matter. I don't care for them myself, but okay,
Sure.
they matter. He was making this kid feel important. And Mike Rizzo, then the general manager of the Nats, was upstairs watching. And later I said to him, well, I think one of the things I'm going to do is have guys go up in the stands, because after all, get some guys on the 60-day IL. Nobody pulled a groin shaking hands or signing an autograph.
Right.
And he said, can't do it. Can you see Bryce Harper in Yankee Stadium? I said, no, but I wasn't suggesting that. I could see him in Philadelphia, though not based on the way he's playing right at the moment.
Not at the moment, yeah.
Not at the moment. They've got security. Come on. And they have a precedent. Joey Votto, on the day that he was nominated by the Cincinnati Reds late in his career for the Clemente Award,
Right.
was standing out on the mound in a Clemente jersey. And this is as old-fashioned as you can get.
Yeah.
He was uncomfortable in the Clemente jersey because, of course, the Reds and the Pirates have been historically,
rivals,
storylines.
Of course.
That defines baseball. And so he wants out of the Clemente jersey. And he decides, I can make somebody really happy. So he goes into the locker room and he takes it off. He puts on a Barry Larkin jersey, and he says, I'm going to go into the stands and visit the people.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see the people. And what just struck me the most was that he was apprehensive. The trepidation that he went with and carried with him was shocking, because it speaks to that alienation of affection. What were they going to want? What were they going to do to him? Was it going to be dangerous in some absurd way? Because he wasn't telling anybody in advance that he was.
Right.
And it ended up that he was, and this is his word, charmed.
Yeah.
Charmed. And it made a huge difference to him and to his perspective, on the people who are, after all, paying the salary. And also on his perspective on what the game needs to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's so near the end of his career that it wasn't something he was going to be able to repeat as an active player. But it was, those two moments, those guys in the stands. Mike says to me, can't do it. I went, yeah, you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But really you can.
Yeah. But there are things, and I'm trying to remember who it is specifically who talks about this in your book, but it really struck me because you talk about, look, the Bananas as an example, or something like Joey Votto is very, like, it's foreign to what baseball has become. But as you have talked about in the book, and again, you'll remind me who said this, you put, you add replay to baseball, right? And you could, I have my own thoughts about replay that I've talked about a lot, and things I don't like and whatever. But here's something that replay took away. Managers are not running out on the field and kicking dirt on umpires anymore. That was entertainment. That was an entertainment part of the game that was literally just for show. It was a big old show for the crowd. They tear their hats off and bite them and rip them off and do all these crazy things. And the crowd would always go crazy, and it was always like goofy and funny, and it's gone. And there are a lot of things that feels to me like that were a part of baseball that were kind of geared specifically to the fans, that it's not like they just decided to end them. They added replay. So you can't do that anymore. There's no reason for it. But remind me of who it was that was talking to you about that.
Interestingly, it was Jim Joyce. It was a former umpire.
Wow.
And he said that was the fun of it. It was fun. And I don't think they were quite as thin-skinned back then.
No.
I recognized that, it was A.J. Ellis, Kershaw's catcher for so many years with the Dodgers, who said, it's like we've forgotten that we're entertainers.
Yeah.
Our job is to entertain, is to give fans something that they can't get somewhere else. And it was Rich Hill, God bless him, 45 years old, pitched for the Royals a bit. I don't think they did him right, but okay. who said, I used to step off the mound. I can't do this anymore either because of the pitch clock. I used to step off the rubber and look around and drag out a dramatic moment purely for the drama, to let it build.
Yeah.
And the game is, has evolved in a way that entertainment is the least important part of the job.
Yeah.
And you talk about the bananas and how significant they've become in the consciousness of what baseball is. Jacob Young, the young center fielder for the Nats, made 2 catches in one game at Citi Field against
Incredible.
where
Incredible.
he brought back, a home run from
Yep.
over the center field wall. And as he came down to earth, the ball dropped out of his glove.
Yep.
And he kicked it back up and caught it in the glove. For, we're talking acrobatic and instinctual in an incredible way. And what was the reaction from most people? Oh, that's a bananas play.
Yeah.
No, it's not a bananas play. It's a play of a great athlete
Yes.
who happens to specialize in that part of the game.
Yeah.
As a light hitter, when those kinds of things mattered more. And, so the bananas have co-opted part of baseball's identity. Those special things, those skill things, have all gotten squeezed together by this kind of unanimity of approach in constructing lineups and rosters and everything else. I mean, there's no differences, there are no subtleties, there's no texture anymore. And interestingly, did you remember that? Did you see the game that where Yamamoto in Baltimore a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
So he's pitching a no-hitter, and Davey Roberts, who is famous, and I had just been sitting in the dugout giving him a hard time about this. So I haven't had a chance to ask him what he was thinking about. But yeah, he had taken Kershaw and Rich Hill out of
Perfect game with Kershaw. Took him out.
And that's another one of my rules.
Yeah.
Any manager that takes out a pitcher throwing a perfect game that's thrown 7 innings, unless the guy's arm is literally, falling off, loses all his managerial challenges for 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Davey sends him back out for the 9th inning. And what happens? Yamamoto is pitching to Jackson Holliday, and Jackson Holliday hits a home run to right center field. It's what's known as a wall scraper.
Yep.
There was no bringing it back. It was just a home run.
Yep.
And so people are like, oh, that's terrible. No, it was the story was perfect.
Yeah.
The fact that Davey Roberts said later, I wanted it for him. I wanted it for him bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want managers who say, yeah, go get it. And if you don't get the no-hitter, lose the game, okay, so be it. And that was at a time when the Dodgers were losing.
Yeah. Well, but that is such a part of what a long season is supposed to be. I mean, of course, every game matters in that way, but not every game matters in the same, like you can lose games and you will lose games no matter what. And I remember this has been 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe even longer. Matt Carpenter had 3 home runs in a game in the 6th inning, and they pulled him from the game. 3 home runs and 2 doubles, if I'm not mistaken. And they pulled him because they were up 18-0 or whatever. And it was like, why would you not see if he could hit 4 home runs or 5 home runs in a game? You could turn this moment, this game, into something that every single person here will never, ever forget. They'll save. I mean, there are no more ticket stubs, but they'll save it on their phone forever. They'll save that little thing on their phone forever. And they'll tell everybody they knew, I was at that game that Matt Carpenter hit 5 home runs. But it's like, well, you have to protect him. Why? What do you mean you have to protect him? What's gonna, look, guys can get hurt anytime. But I think this is speaking exactly to what you're talking about, in the sense of the fans are never a part of the decision making. The decision, not never, because as you mentioned, Dave Roberts left Yamamoto in the game. It'll still happen, but it is so low on the priority list. Is the idea that you could actually lose a game because you're trying to make it more entertaining is like, it's horrifying to people. And it wasn't that long ago. People would always, I mean, that's the famous Satchel Paige intentionally walking the bases loaded so he could face Josh Gibson. I mean, that's like everybody in the ballpark is here to see something, and constantly baseball seems to take that something away.
Well, I talked to Davey about this a lot, because we had a long talk about the Kershaw game, which was his first start in
First start of the year, yeah.
2022. He had been injured in 2021. Has had a long history of back injuries, arm injuries, shoulder injuries, you name it, toe injuries, and had come back from all of them in one way or another. And here he is in Minnesota. It's freezing. It's a cold day, and he's throwing a perfect game.
Yeah.
And he's mowing them down. And AJ Ellis is narrating this for me. He said, I'm watching this. I'm watching my best friend, and I can see how easily he's doing this, right? And and it comes to the end of 7 innings. They did the prudent, legally, important thing. They took him out. Why? It's a decision, as AJ said, that was no doubt made before the game, before he had 7 perfect innings. And I said to Dave, here's the problem. If the next day the story was Clayton Kershaw, the greatest left-handed pitcher of his generation, comes out after, on day 1, after all this history of hurt, and throws a perfect game in the cold in Minnesota, wouldn't that be a reason to come out to the ballpark?
Yeah.
Say, I might see something like that. As opposed to Clayton Kershaw threw 7 perfect innings and was removed from the game because it was the prudent thing to do.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. All right, we're going to get to some specific ideas that you have as when you become commissioner. But we have a question. The question is from Stephen, and Stephen wants to know about you. He says that he loves your book and that you write a lot about the experience of attending games. He's wondering about your perspective on improving the experience for watching on television. Does he think you have some answers or some thoughts on how to make television more entertaining for fans?
Well, my first thought about that is, can we make baseball findable?
Well, that helps.
I'm technologically, I'm a moron. Okay, I admit it. But I do know how to operate a remote control and type in, MLB playoff. I spent 2 hours trying to find a game the other night.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I understand that they're trying to, but here's another example. They're trying to maximize revenue.
Yeah.
And by parceling out packages of games to different platforms. Okay, I get that the game of the week isn't coming back. We all know that, but they have a crisis that has to do with television. And again, I don't know that that anybody's thinking about the fan experience. The model on which baseball economics, was founded came from William Holpert, who is in the Hall of Fame, central to the creation of the National League in the 1880s, who gave the Rowdies, owners who owned the teams back then, dominion over their local marketing and territory. Well, it wasn't that much to market, probably cigarette ads,
Right, right.
And even when radio came in, first in 2021, and then the first World Series in 27, still wasn't a lot of money. And then there's the Depression, and then comes television. Okay, now we're starting to talk, see something. Other sports, younger sports, the NBA, and at least younger institutionally, the NBA,
For sure.
NFL, were not wedded to old ways of doing things.
That's right.
And so they were able to take a look and say, cable. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe we split up the money. Well, wow, that's revolutionary.
Yeah.
And baseball has that to a certain extent through the luxury tax system, which was imposed after the 1996 collective bargaining agreement, after the strike that almost killed baseball. So the rich people do to some extent support the poorer teams, but the regional sports networks are cratering.
Yeah. Well, they've
Interestingly,
cratered.
right? Yeah, right. Since they started to have bringing in gambling organizations, and I don't blame Rob Manfred for saying he wants one national package. Let me see a game when I want to find it.
Right.
I mean, not pay for the overlapping packages, 27 different ones. I have a house in Massachusetts, and I have. You want me to name them all? No, you don't want me to name them all. But I'm there, and there's a Yankee Red Sox. I think it was a 4-game series. I couldn't watch it.
Right. Right. How about the Dodgers? Dodgers couldn't watch Kershaw's last game in LA. Couldn't watch it because it was on Apple TV. You had to they had to get Apple TV for one day or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll give you one television thing that I would change immediately. This is not going to save anything or whatever, but these picture-in-picture commercials have to stop. They just have to stop. Just you're not fooling anybody. We're us a guy walk around on the mound while you're showing me this pharmaceutical commercial. It's a commercial. We get it. You know what? You keep squeezing commercials in everywhere you possibly can. It feels cheap. You know what it feels like? It feels like those stupid Strauss signs on their helmets now. It doesn't feel like, hey, I'm selling, whatever I can. It feels like you have no money. It feels cheap. You're like selling to the lowest, common denominator. It bugs me. All right, moving on from television.
Can I just say that one thing about that?
Yes.
It's like they're selling off parts of themselves, like organ donors.
That's right.
And the one of the first ones was actually something called Roman, which is now called Roe.
Right.
Dispensing male.
Yeah. No, the pills. Yeah. No.
Right, and to see that on the back of the mound, mommy, what's that?
Yeah, it's so.
What's Roman? Okay.
Well, but then in the middle of the game, we have to tell you that that they'll pay $250 for 100 if Aaron Judge gets a double. I mean, it's like
those bugs, those gambling bugs is what they're called. Those should be banished for good.
Ugh.
You want to have a gambling channel, and a separate broadcast for it for people who want to do that. Go with God, but it shouldn't be intruding upon the action.
Totally agree. All right, Andy has a question. Andy says, "I love the audiobook, Jane. Talk about the 2 outfielders scenario. It's revolutionary, but it would be so much fun."
Yeah, I'm not allowed to tell you who suggested it, but I guarantee you, I swear to you, and I don't make stuff up like this. This came from a very, very high-placed major league person who is an analytics person.
Okay.
But who loves aspects of the old game and misses them too. So, what's missing is the action. And what fans have told Major League Baseball and, surveys, they want more triples. They want more action on the bases. So their solution to that was to make the bases bigger, which is, my beloved Ron Washington, who not going to get another chance to manage the Angels.
No, probably not. No.
No, that's decided. They told him he's gone. And they had to make a point of saying it's because of performance.
Oh, I thought you meant he would. I know he was gone. I thought you meant he was never going to get another chance.
Oh, I don't know. I hope, he's describing how instead of teaching guys how to run bases and how to steal bases and how to use the bag to their advantage. No, we have to give them advantages with bigger bags. Okay. So the idea of the 2 outfielders is you want to see outfielders running for balls. You want to see them, making plays in the alleys. People start hitting into the alleys if there are only 2 outfielders.
Yeah.
The alleys are gone now. It's not where it's not where the balls are going. And it will increase action on the bases. it's not as crazy as the golden at bat.
No, nothing is quite as crazy as the golden at bat, which I, by the way, think the golden at bat, I remember them talking about the golden at bat as an all-star game, like gimmick. And I thought, perfect for the all-star game. That's perfect for the, you bring Shohei back in the ninth inning. That's fine. I mean, that's an exhibition game anyway. The day that became like a real thing, that they were like, what are we even talking about here? But the two outfielder thing specifically, I hear about this all the time, and that is about what are the incentives for a player. And right now, the incentives are not to put the ball in play. The incentive is to hit the ball over the fence, because if you put the ball in play, more often than not, it's an out. These guys are just so good. They've got you charted. Yes, they took away somewhat the shift, but you still have guys playing behind the bag. I mean, it's pretty much still the same on that front. So there's no incentive to hit the ball in play. You have to hit the ball very, very hard, even if you put it in play, regardless. I mean, if it's in play, you still have to hit it very, very, very hard, or you have to hit it over the fence. That's your only way of going. And how do you bring that incentive back? That is one. I mean, I know that's been Theo's big thing, is how do you bring the incentive back to players to, hey, not strike out, put the ball in play. I mean, it's hard enough against these pitchers when you have 5 of them coming at you at 100 miles an hour, and you've got a thought about velocity that I'll ask you about. It's hard enough, but hey, suddenly if there are 2 outfielders, yeah, you want to put the ball in play. Now you've got doubles and triples just sitting there waiting to happen. So it's a very interesting concept.
I also am kind of fond, I know everybody will think this is crazy, of the idea of the plexiglass wall in the outfield. And it works 2 ways. The idea is you create something that looks kind of like a hockey rink,
Right,
in the outfield. We could even do it as an experiment for 5 years, and we don't have to argue about, everything being the same, because steroids made everything, records all
right.
not the same. Forget it. But if you put plexiglass out there, right, and you made it high enough, like 15, 18 feet, some of those really cheap home runs, would become balls of, demand athleticism in
Yeah.
outfielders. They'd have to be able to field the ball and throw the ball.
Yeah,
And what's more, would you want to be sitting behind that plexiglass seat when
of course.
Aaron Judge goes barreling into it to make a catch against that plexiglass? I think it creates a whole new marketing strategy for seats out in the outfield.
Absolutely.
So, why not? It doesn't change the way the game is played by imposing an actual, rule change. We're gonna the crazy at bat thing, but it changes. It forces the players to play differently.
Yeah. You talk in the book quite a bit about velocity, pitcher velocity. Obviously, that is very much at the heart of how the game has changed. You have a bunch of different thoughts on what you could do with pitchers and making them available and so on and so on. But you also very specifically are ready to put a speed limit on the fastball, aren't you?
Another idea from unspoken, unnamed,
Up on high, though. Up on high.
very high major league executive who said, well, we have the technology. Of course they do. If you enacted a rule that said any pitch over 95 miles an hour is an automatic ball, trust me, they wouldn't be throwing 105.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I said to him, yeah, but let's put a wrinkle in it. Let's put a wrinkle that you can, per at bat, you can throw one ball as hard as you want, but the batter won't know when it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm laughing, but I think that the tearing of pitching arms, like cheap Christmas tinsel paper,
It's awful.
is awful. It's bad for the players, certainly. The statistics are that 70% of the Tommy John pitchers come back, 59% to some level comparable to what they were before. But the numbers are not abating; they're getting higher, and the people getting the surgery are getting younger.
Yeah.
Down to 14-year-olds. So
I mean, there are people getting the surgery because they know they'll have to get it, so why not get it now?
right.
Yeah, their elbows are not even torn up yet, and they're like, let's get the surgery because I'm going to have to get it anyway.
But it's also one more way in which the fan doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot root for guys who aren't there.
Yeah.
So Garrett Cole is gone for 18 months.
Right.
I mean, it's the waste of money. They in the Major League Baseball report that they issued, which was quite good in some ways on injuries last year, they said that they spent $1 billion in having players sit on the injured list.
Yeah.
$1 billion worth of time. Of that $1 billion, 2/3 were because of pitching injuries. So my other radical thought is, let's increase the size of the pitching staff. It's insane that in July, every general manager is scouring the waiver wire and picking up somebody else's retread, thinking, oh, I'll teach him, I'll show him how to do it. And he's gone a day later because he's got nothing left, right?
Yeah.
So instead of that, what I would do is, got 13 now, 15 or 16. The union's never going to object to more jobs, right? The salaries can be paid with the savings on medical care. And you create a healthy scratch list, sort of like they have in the NHL.
Sure.
There's no reason that your starting pitcher from yesterday, should be counted among your 13. He's not going to pitch the next, he's not going to pitch after he just pitched. So put him there and then take your two most overused relievers. And believe me, there are so many of them so early in the season, and give them some days off, but let them throw, not throw Max Heave, throw the way guys used to throw, because they throw harder, but they throw much less than they used to.
Yeah.
They really need to throw more. The other caveat, just to put this in and Theo endorsed this. I went back to him. I said, make sure this is on the record. Of that staff, you would only have 11 available
Right.
on any given day. That would force people to start using pitchers differently, which would force pitchers to start pitching differently.
Yeah.
They have to conserve some of their energy and not throw every ball 100 miles an hour max heave.
Yeah. I have a friend in the game who said this to me a few months ago, and I just threw it away because it was like, this is silly. But as you talk about this, I don't know that it is silly. He says baseball did its players, its pitchers, and its fans a disservice by going away from the old radar gun. So the old radar gun used to measure ball across the plate, not out of the hand.
Right.
And that's why those numbers were always, he throws 86, he throws 88, he throws 91. Out of the hand, suddenly these guys are throwing 97, 98. And of course now 100, 102, 104. And he says it's that number 100. Like these goes in the day, there was one guy who could throw 100 miles an hour, and it was Nolan Ryan. There was one guy, like even like Goose Gossage didn't throw 100 miles an hour. And it's because of the way the radar gun was. And he has said that he really truly believes history would have been shifted if they stayed with that radar gun and 100 was not an option, that you were still trying to throw 93, 94, 95, because the difference between 95 and 93 doesn't seem like the difference that is 97 and 101. That just, there's something like mental about that. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting thought.
Don't take it from me. I mean, Leo Mazzoni, Charlie Manuel, all sorts of, the old codgers who say, it's the difference is in how the speed is measured.
Yeah.
And of course, you've also got much bigger players. And that
Huge. Yes, of course.
that means that it's not just a function of size, because Spencer Strider has, an extraordinary extension rate. The
Oh,
fact
yeah.
that they measure, if a ball is actually traveling 61 feet, 60 feet 6 inches. 61 was what they tried. Sorry. Is crazy. It's that it leaves the hand maybe 53 feet from home plate for
Yeah.
most of the average, I think,
Yeah.
extension rate. And then there are these guys who are close to, 6'7", whatever. And how anybody hits anything is just astonishing to me. I
So
mean,
true.
it's amazing, especially since they don't see the ball for the last 5 feet in flight.
It's so true. Well, I mean, they showed that the other day. Luis Castillo, I guess, has the shortest reach, and Logan Gilbert has the biggest, and like the distance is like it's like 3 feet. It's like 2 or 3 feet difference in, of course, and they both get people out different ways. All right, we got a question from Mark. Mark knows that I personally despise the intentional walk. He wants to know, Jane, what would you think about instituting the banana ball walk rule on intentional walks?
That is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm sorry. No. I have not got a better solution than the intentional walk. But that is just that scramble where every defensive player has to touch the ball before you get to first base. I mean, it's Keystone Cops. And that cheapens the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no. But ask me about the Ghost Runner. Oh.
Hate it. Hate it.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Why? Because a core value of the game has been destroyed.
Yeah.
That core value is that you had to earn your way around the bases.
Yeah.
And so, and what's more, I mean, have you ever seen the Yankees, try to shorten up and go the other way in the 10th inning? And even more so, Joe, I did, math is not my strong point, but I did get help from David Adler at MLB Stats, who's, lovely and a genius, and God, was he patient with me. 75% of extra inning games end at the end of the 10th inning.
Yeah.
So you're legislating preemptively for a likelihood that doesn't exist.
Right.
So in honor of dear departed Roger Angel, who really hated it.
Yes.
He said, have them go through the order one more time. Go to the 13th inning. Do I think baseball's better off without games like the one that Warren Spahn and Juan Marichal pitched in '62 at the stick, and Willie Mays ends it in the bottom of the 16th with a home run against the wind?
Yeah.
No, I don't think baseball's
Of course
better.
not. Of course not.
Or the game in AAA at Pawtucket,
30 inning game. Yeah.
Yep. I don't think so. But am I willing to acknowledge that travel is so much harder now and so much more difficult on players' bodies and sleep rhythms and stuff? Yes, so they're all going to be trade-offs.
Well, they're going to be trade-offs, but there have been quite a few decisions in the game that essentially were like, look, it's sort of like what you were saying before. 9 out of 10 times, 99 out of 100 times, this is going to be pretty plain, so let's just get rid of it. That was, to me, the whole thing about the intentional walk. Look, a core value of the game was you had to throw the 4 balls to walk the guy. That was a core value. And they're like, that's boring. Okay. But every now and again, Johnny Bench gets struck out because he thinks it's going to be an intentional walk, and they throw strike 3, and also it's you don't give the fans an opportunity to boo the intentional walk anymore. It just happens. Nobody even notices. And I again, so much of it seems to be, I think these things generally do come out of good intentions, right? That we want to make the game a little quicker. We want to cut out some of the boring and this, that, the other, but it doesn't feel like it comes from people who love baseball. Like, nobody I know who loves baseball was like, those 4 pitches in the intentional walk drive me crazy. I hate that. Like, nobody felt that way. It's like, it was fine. I mean, nobody loved it. Nobody hated it. It was part of the game. And so, but they legislated it out. And same thing with the I call it the zombie runner, because the guy comes back from the dead to be put at second base. And it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Like, let's come up with ways to make the game fun for the fans, not ways to, like, I don't even know what, it just doesn't feel like the direction is, and that's why you need to be commissioner.
The fans don't exist as a constituency.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with Bill, the Spaceman Lee, which was just fabulous. He came to pitch in Orleans, Massachusetts for the Firebirds, nay Cardinals.
Okay.
And we became fast friends, and I saw him in the Bananas and stuff. And he called me up. He said, I know why you need to be commissioner. And I said, why is that, Spaceman? And he said, it's because you're not for the owners and you're not for the fans. You're for the game.
Yeah.
And it was the kindest thing, anybody ever said. He did, however, moon the field in the most beautiful baseball field in the world, which is Eldridge Park in Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And there's another, story in that. I mean, they used to be the Cardinals, the Orleans Cardinals. And then in 2008, 2009, somebody in Major League Baseball said, oh, you can't use a major league name.
Right.
Because unless you use major league merch.
Right.
So, so it's all about money again. So they forced the teams to choose between, and these are nonprofits, to choose between being faithful to the vendors or the local vendors who had supported them for all these years, or to the moniker. And, everybody, with the exception of 2 teams, changed their names. The Red Sox couldn't change their names. I mean, they were Red Sox territory, so they stayed the Red Sox. And the Mariners didn't change their names because they came before the Seattle Mariners.
Oh. So, yeah.
So maybe they could sue the Seattle Mariners for stealing there. But, the woman who's the GM and who I wrote about way back in 2011, Miss Sue Horton, who is known universally in Cape Cod as Miss Sue, said she gave, she had to eat $60,000 worth of merchandise, which was a lot of money for them.
Yeah,
in that
sure.
time. She said, I'll give it all away, but not the jerseys. The jerseys you have to earn.
Nice. That's so good. All right. So the book is Make Me Commissioner. We want to make Jane Leavy commissioner. What is sort of like, all right, we've got a couple of minutes left. What do you want people, honestly, they read this book, what do you want them to come away with? What do you want them to feel reading this book?
That it's worth caring.
Yeah. It is. The game is worth caring about.
And that there are things that can be done.
Yeah.
The best example of that maybe is, again, I'm going back to Davy Roberts, who said, why does the home team take batting practice before the gates open?
Yeah.
I used to go to when I lived growing up in St. Louis, I used to go to watch infield practice.
Yeah.
It was great to see them practicing, and they would show off for us.
Yeah.
Now, again, this has to do with travel and all sorts of exigent things like that. But I became a baseball fan because I could go down to Yankee Stadium and watch Mickey Mantle at batting practice. And in fact, this is one of my favorite memories. I stood online waiting for him to come out of the ballpark one day, and he looked at me and he cut one. I think I was 10, right? And later I was a reporter for the Washington Post. I did a long story on him, which was the genesis for my biography.
Right.
And he passed out dead drunk in my lap. It was just mortifying, horrible. I didn't know what to do with him. And he was, he was an alcoholic who already had cirrhosis. And the next morning at breakfast, I said to him, "What kind of an adult does that?
Yeah.
What were you thinking? And while you're at it, you farted in my face." He said, "Oh, Jane, oh, I'll give you an autograph now." Pulls out an 8x10 glossy, looking, fine, and writes, "Sorry, I farted. Your friend Nick."
There you go.
There you
You can't get a better autograph than that. All right, the book is Make Me Commissioner. It is available everywhere. It is terrific. As a baseball fan, you're not going to agree with everything, but you're going to agree with a whole lot of it, and you're going to agree with how much passion is in there. Jane, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, Joe. Thank you. And you know what? I'm one of those people why we love baseball.
No, I love it.